Welcome to The Explainer. So today we are unlocking a kind of fascinating modern mystery. Have you ever been scrolling through your feed and it suddenly hits you that certain friends or, acquaintances literally never post pictures of themselves? Like no selfies, no big birthday updates, absolutely no perfectly curated vacation shots? Think of that friend who got married and the only way you even knew about it was because you saw a ring on their finger in person months later. In our digital age where it feels like absolutely everybody is broadcasting every second of their lives, these individuals are almost like invisible users. It's incredibly intriguing. We're going to decode the minds of these people who actively choose not to post. And trust me, the psychology behind this is absolutely fascinating.
Okay, let's dive into this. Why do some people never post photos? In a world that is so heavily rigged to reward attention, their behavior really stands out, precisely because they seem so completely hidden from view. It is so easy to look at our fast-paced, attention-driven feeds and assume that, hey, if you aren't posting, you're missing out, or you're hiding, or you're just getting left behind. But when you look at the psychological data, the absence of these photos is actually a loud, deliberate choice. It tells us a profound story about how human beings navigate a world that's practically designed to steal their attention.
Society usually jumps to the assumption that someone who doesn't post pictures is just antisocial, maybe overly shy, or lacking in social skills. But the psychological reality? It reveals the exact opposite. People who refrain from posting are often highly emotionally intelligent and deeply secure in themselves. Their lack of posting isn't random at all. It reveals a massive amount about their internal confidence. They aren't hiding from the world, they are actively and confidently choosing exactly how they interact with it.
All right, part one, the invisible online user, breaking down the assumption.
Because here's the thing, in a world that constantly rewards attention, their silence isn't random. To truly understand this intentional behavior, we really have to look past the surface of our shiny social media feeds and examine their internal core. It takes a certain kind of strength to remain quiet when every single app on your phone is practically begging you to be loud and visible. It's a purposeful act of resistance. It's an intentional shaping of their personal environment, rather than just some passive retreat from society.
Which brings us to part two, the power of self-validation, the inner world.
Psychologists actually have a great term for this. It's called self-concept clarity. Research shows that people who share less online often possess a deeply ingrained sense of who they are. They know their values, they know their goals, and they know what truly matters to them without needing a barrage of comments or likes to confirm it. Now, what's really interesting about this is because their identity is so firmly rooted, they don't feel the urge to chase fleeting trends or constantly compare themselves to others. They already know exactly who they are. It's like a deeply rooted tree that doesn't bend with every passing breeze of a new social media trend.
When you look at the traits of these emotionally secure users, a really clear picture emerges. Because they possess a secure self-esteem, a type of confidence that just doesn't need constant attention to survive, psychologists note they are generally way less anxious and far less approval-seeking than the average user. Instead of obsessing over a digital persona, their energy is poured into tangible, real-world goals. They don't post selfies to prove their worth because fundamentally, they already feel complete. And that incredible sense of completeness, that's driven by an internal locus of evaluation. Basically, this means they judge themselves strictly by their own standards rather than the shifting opinions and standards of the crowd. People who stay quiet online are often deep thinkers and highly introspective. They think before they speak, and they only post when something genuinely matters to them. Because of this internal locus, they greatly prefer authentic, face-to-face conversations over superficial digital interactions.
So, what does this all mean? Well, it boils down to this simple, powerful truth. For these individuals, happiness comes from within, not from the feed. Their internal emotional security perfectly dictates how they choose to engage with the external world. When your joy isn't dependent on a little heart icon, imagine the absolute freedom that gives you to live life entirely on your own terms.
Moving on to part three, the privacy orientation, guarding the boundary.
So the crucial point here is the massive contrast we see. The norm for most people today is seeking validation through likes and comments. It's this frantic, constantly moving attention-seeking cycle. Against this stands the quiet user, who relies entirely on self-validation. They are the grounded, peace-seeking exception to the rule. They simply don't need to announce their life events to the entire world just to feel good about them.
Psychologists refer to this as having a high privacy orientation. They deeply value control over what others see and think about them. And this is absolutely crucial.
Choosing not to announce your life isn't an antisocial act, it's a deliberate, protective act of preserving your own energy. If you've ever felt completely drained after posting a photo and obsessively checking the likes, you can definitely understand why they value this control so much. By guarding these boundaries, they maintain full ownership over their personal narratives and ultimately their mental well-being.
Part 4. Escaping the digital illusion, the meta view.
And this brilliantly illustrates how many of these quiet users are actively avoiding social comparison theory. That's our very human tendency to constantly measure our own worth against the carefully curated highlight reels of everybody else. They recognize how easily social media distorts reality. Staying low-key isn't an accident for them. It's a highly calculated move to protect their mental health from this endless, toxic comparison cycle. They see the game and they simply choose not to play it. It literally comes down to this. They choose peace over performance. This is their ultimate priority in the digital age. They absolutely refuse to treat their daily existence as some theatrical performance for an audience of acquaintances. They would much rather have quiet peace than loud digital exhaustion.
Which leaves us to Part 5, Redefining Real Confidence, the Power of Silence.
These 3 words perfectly summarize the reality of who these invisible users actually are: grounded, emotionally intelligent, self-aware. We have completely dismantled the initial myth that they're just shy or hiding in the shadows. Instead, we see individuals who have truly mastered their own minds and emotions in what is an increasingly chaotic digital landscape.
It all leads to this defining idea from our sources. They don't need to be seen to feel seen. Talk about a real game changer. This beautifully captures what real, unshakable confidence looks like today. True validation comes from their own internal compass, from their real-world actions, and from their genuine connections, not from an invisible digital audience.
And that leaves us with this final provocative thought. Next time you notice a quiet friend online, someone who hasn't posted a picture in months or maybe even ever, how will you see them? Are you going to assume they're missing out? Or will you recognize the quiet confidence, the emotional intelligence, and the profound peace they've intentionally built for themselves? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.